I won't have to order soap for years. I've got tons of soap. And he's trying to tell me to throw it away and order Amway soap. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to throw my soap away. And it became this. It was like a pissing contest between me and Bob about that soap. And he was constantly on my husband about how he needed to go in and throw that soap away. And he's going, I'm not touching her soap. and
you better.
Yeah, he's like, you want to come over and throw her soap away? You go right ahead. I'm not touching her soap. And it was just this. And every time for the whole time we were in Amway, anytime he made some comment about it wasn't going as fast as he wanted or whatever, Bob would tell him, well, it's because of that soap. You won't throw that soap away. And I never did throw that soap away. I still had that soap for years after we left Amway. It lasted for years. I don't know how many bars of soap it was, a couple of hundred.
That's great. That's great. Another thing they do, kind of a spin on that, is instead of throwing it away, either give it away, to some some needy organization, or another tactic that they'll use is, well, don't throw it away. Just put it in a box and put it in the back of a closet somewhere, and then if Amway doesn't work out, you can always use it in the future. But they definitely, again, the whole thing is to get you to buy Amway stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of those options result in you buying Amway stuff, and that's the whole purpose, is for you to buy as much Amway stuff and as many tools as you can while you're in, because, you are their meal ticket, you and the people that you can recruit. Now, how many people were between you guys? You mentioned Bob, and there was like 5 other levels between you and the ENSs. Is that kind of your position?
Our directs were directly under them. And then there was probably, 8 or 9 people between us and the direct.
Okay, so you were pretty far down in depth. That's interesting. And how big was your group at the height, let's say? What pin level or PV did you get at the maximum?
We went on the stage one time, how you at the rallies, but I can't remember. It may have been 1,000, it may have been 2,500, something like that. But we only did it one time. But yeah, we went on the stage and we got our little pins and stuff. But
and it was a level that you achieved once, right? You didn't keep repeating it.
Yeah, one time, and that was when we were like signing up the most people. And then after that, it never got that high again.
Yeah, the same for us. The highest we ever got was 1,000 PV, 1,000 pin. Now, we had sponsored over the years a dozen people or so, but they wouldn't last very long. They would last maybe a few months.
That's exactly what would happen, yeah.
They would just come and go. You'd build up a little group, and then they would fall apart. So it was a constant rebuilding process. So there's nothing here where, the people that say, well, gee, if you sponsor 5 and then each of them sponsors 5 and then each one of them sponsors 5. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't grow exponentially. It falls apart. And that's why I don't like that analogy.
It works on paper, but it doesn't really work. Yeah.
Exactly. It's good math. It has no relationship to reality, however. Now, some of these groups do get big, so don't get me wrong. You were 9 down in depth, so, something was going on as far as growth there. But for that to happen across the board, no, it does not happen that way. In fact, if there was 9 people between you and your direct, that means that none of those other 9 people in the middle either had enough volume in your leg or any side legs for them to go direct.
Our leg was pretty much it, honestly, because I know between Bob and then the person below him and then us, it was just one long leg, and it went down through us. And when Russ would come to Oregon, he was in Oregon at least once a month. He would be working on our leg. At the time, it was like, oh, what a great, honor this is that he's coming, because he lived in Las Vegas, and he was coming to Oregon and working with our group. And so it was always like, oh, what a great honor. He must care about us so much. And no, it's because this was the one leg that was actually doing things.
Yeah, and definitely the diamonds, and the emeralds, the high pins, they tend to focus on building depth in an existing leg. That's where they put their focus. That's where they get the biggest bang for their buck, because every time they sponsor somebody under you, not only do you have a new person, but all of those 9 people above you have a new person. And again, that's hope, right? Like we talked about earlier. Every time anyone gets added to your leg, you know, whether it's you personally or way down in depth, that just, quote unquote, proves that the business works. And so people, again, tend to stay in longer because of that, because they see, okay, this really can work. You know, I just need to keep working it, like they're telling me, you know, like this diamond who has done it at least 6 times, 6 different legs, has actually done it. So there's a high level of believability. And certainly, you know, when I joined in January 93 and you were in 94, that was a time when there had just been a massive amount of growth, and it was still going on. There was still a lot of growth, and there was a lot of people, as you said, crossing stage, you know, at these monthly seminars and these quarterly big functions, you know, with thousands and thousands of people. So there was always new platinums and emeralds and diamonds and double diamonds constantly crossing stage. And again, that's a big belief thing where, well, gee, if that goofy looking guy can do it, then, you know, what should keep me from doing that? And so again, it's that whole group mentality, you know, and when you see the evidence like that, it's really easy to believe. It really is. Now, after probably 95, 96 is when it really kind of started slowing down, and then after that it really slowed down and actually went backwards, I believe. But, yeah, during that time period that we started, the early to mid-90s, I mean, the Amway business was thundering, and not just overseas, but in the U.S. as far as new people achieving new pins. Now, at the same time, don't get me wrong, there were other groups that were disintegrating. And so you know, the overall growth wasn't that terrific. But there was growth within certainly Yeager, Wilson, Haugen. Those guys were really putting in new people left and right, you know, not just individuals, but high pin levels. So that was just part of that whole belief that you say, well, this is, you know, how can I doubt this? Because it's right there. You know, it's right in front of you. So for the ticket you bought, and it's going into their back pocket.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That
reminded me. The last thing that I attended that was Amway, and I had pretty much stopped going to. We weren't doing the major functions anymore, and I wasn't going to the seminar rally anymore. My husband was. Every once in a while he'd go, but I wasn't. I wasn't really interested in it anymore. But there was this one day, it was during the summer, and we still had the Am box. And there was this message passed down that there was going to be an Amway company picnic. And it was going to be in Salem, which was kind of like right in the middle of the state. And it was going to be statewide, didn't matter what group you were in, what your upline was. It was going to be everybody in Oregon who was in Amway was invited to this company picnic. And they were really, you know, talking it up, and all these people, you know, the important people that were going to be there. I can't remember who was there, but like emeralds and diamonds. I didn't know any of them. They weren't in my line. But so I didn't really have anything to do that day. My daughter was 4 at the time, and they were talking about, you know, fun things for the kids, you know. And kids were not really involved in any of these things that were going on the weekends. Because, I mean, everybody had to get babysitters for their kids. So the fact that they were having this picnic and bring your kids and there'll be some things for the kids, I thought, well, you know, I'll go to that. And the couple of the ladies that were up line for me were saying, are you going to go? And I said, yeah, I'll go. So, and it was, you know, yeah, they said bring your own picnic lunch. Okay. So I drive an hour to get, and it was at a high school. So I drive an hour to get there, and I show up. It's me and my 4-year-old. And we've got, like, Subway sandwiches or something. And we're going into this football field of the high school. And they're charging $5 a person, which they did not say anywhere in any of the information about this company picnic that they were going to charge people to go in. And I'm like, okay. And I've already driven an hour to get here, so I paid, you know, $10. I'm bringing my own food. And I go into this high school football field. And it was just people sitting on the grass on a football field. There was nothing. There was nothing. It was just people sitting on their own blanket eating their own food, and they paid $5 a person to get in.
Yeah, no activities or anything.
Nothing.
There was no activities.
I mean, I've been to company picnics where, you know, number one, they provide the food and the drinks. Okay, they don't charge you to go in. They bring in, you know, bouncy houses and people doing face painting and balloon animals and stuff for the kids. That's what a company picnic is. This was nothing. And then they had the big wigs were kind of over on one side of the field talking to people. They didn't even have, like, music set up. They didn't even have a sound system set up. They weren't even doing speeches. They were standing over there kind of off to the side, and people would go up and shake their hand.
Now, was this an Amway corporate thing, or was it the upline that put it together?
I really couldn't tell you. They were calling it a company picnic, and it wasn't in, like I said, it wasn't particularly my line. It was like everybody in the state. So the people that were there that were, you know, shaking hands, I didn't know who they were. And a couple of the people I knew that were there were like, "Oh, are you going to go over and talk to whoever they were?" And I was like, "Why? Why would I do that? I don't know who they are. It's not going to." I mean, and there was nothing. So we sat there, we ate our sandwiches. You know, there were some kids running around on the grass that my daughter ran around on the grass with, and then we left. And I was so disgusted by it. I was just like, oh God, that is not how you do a company picnic. Why are you advertising this as a company picnic?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's interesting because typically, you know, that would be considered a cross-lining opportunity, which is forbidden. And not to have anything to do is pretty amazing. I wonder what they were trying to accomplish. It sounds like they were just trying to get enough people together. The only thing I can think of is they're trying to get enough people together where you would go, gee, there's a lot of people in this thing.
There were hundreds of people there. And and every one of those hundreds of people was paying $5 to get in. I guarantee you it didn't cost hardly anything to, you know, rent out a football field from a school in the summertime.
Yeah, especially if they weren't paying for any activities either. I mean, it was all
there was nothing. There was nothing there. It was just like
amazing. That is quite amazing. I don't think I ever had an experience like that. That's the only thing I can think of is they were trying to make an impression on people that look at all these people just in the state of Oregon
that's the only thing it could have been. Yeah. But
That is amazing. The closest thing I can come to that was there was back in 2008, and this was after I was not active anymore. I was still technically an IBO, trying to figure out a way of putting together a legitimate Amway business, which didn't work out. But anyway, Amway in 2008 did this nationwide tour where they would go to various cities around the country, big cities like Dallas, and you know, just set up a bunch of, you know, products. And they had people from Ada, Michigan, and probably California, where their Nutrilite vitamins are based, and they would just, you know, talk about the products and, you know, answer any questions that people had and all of that. And that was the corporate thing. And there was stuff to do as far as, and this was just for adults, it wasn't for kids. But it was informative to the point of them actually talking about their products and that kind of thing, which, you know, never came from the upline in all those different years. And I don't know if they've repeated that since. They may have. You know, I haven't tried to keep track of that. And sometimes I think some of that is kind of behind the curtain, too. They don't like to announce it publicly, only to IBOs. So you have to be able to get on their website and, you know, sign in as an IBO to even know that that's going on. But that's really an interesting tidbit. So that was probably about, 97, 96, 98, somewhere in there?
This would have been 98. I think this was right before. It was shortly after that we just kind of washed our hands of the whole thing. So I would say 98, maybe 97.
Well, one good thing I can say about your ex-husband is when he found out about the tool scam, he was upset about it, because so was I. I couldn't believe that I had been lied to for a dozen years. and they were making most of their money from the tools and not from the Amway products, which is what they were promoting. I mean, you have to assume that they're making their money from what they're promoting, and when they're just lying through their teeth that whole time, it's just amazing to me, how that happens. Now, I think Russ and Lisa Entz were part of, I might be mistaken on this, but I think they were part of the group that moved over to Orrin Woodward back in the mid-2000s sometime, 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there, because Don Wilson's group was shrinking, and Orrin and what was her name? Orrin and I can't think of his wife's name now because everything's about Orrin anyway. But he had a tool system, and he was the only group that was really growing rapidly in North America, as far as I can tell. And so Don Wilson took his whole group. As far as I know, they all came over, including the Ences, and started buying Orrin Woodward's tools and doing his system, and just kind of abandoning the whole tool system, that Don was promoting. Of course, when I started in '93, I don't think Don had his own tool system at that point. I think he was using Jaeger. And then somewhere, I can't remember the exact year, 95, 96, something like that, is when he kind of split off from Jaeger. Not completely, because we still got Jaeger tapes into the group, but Don definitely stood up his own tool system, like many others have over the years. When they get big enough, they say, hey, Mr. Upline, can you give me a bigger cut of the profit? And Mr. Upline says no. And so they say, well, gee, I'll just go off and make my own tool system. And that way I'll keep the tool money. And that happens when things like that occur. Do you remember the tools when you were involved? Was it internet services, or was it, I think Don Wilson's, there was a couple different names. There was WIN, like Wilson International Networking, and there was also a WOW, WOW. Do you remember any of those names? When
you say WOW, that sounds familiar to me, but I couldn't tell you specifically, no.
Yeah, that was a while ago. But yeah, that's what happens is those people split off. And usually I think they maintain some kind of a relationship with their upline, and they still bring in some of their tools, and split some profits there. It's not, I don't think it's usually an acrimonious breakup. It's just, hey, I just need more money, and the upline doesn't give it to them, and say, okay. You would think the upline would want to pay them at least a little bit more money, because it would be better to make a little bit less money as an upline versus a lot less money if they broke off and started their own tool system. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that neither one of us was high enough in the organization. And I'm kind of wondering that if your husband found out, maybe because the upline felt that he was ready for it, that he was, so gung-ho that it was okay.
No, because like I said, at this time we had pretty much kind of stepped back from it.
Okay, so maybe it was to get him more reinterested.
He could have been, or maybe he talked to somebody who had been part of it and had broken away. Like I said, if he had told me who he heard this from, I've forgotten.
Yeah, no, it's just this whole thing, this whole dynamic is interesting to me. How they split off and so forth. Because I know that my upline, one of my upline airline pilots just up and quit one time. I mean, him and his wife just left. I mean, Dennis and Linda Turnbow, they were, he was a Continental Airlines pilot back when Continental Airlines was an airline, and he just left, and there was no explanation. And then another guy, he was a Silver. He was not my direct upline. He was, slightly cross-line somewhere up in the organization. He just up and quit too. And I never heard any explanation, and you never will, really.
Right.
And if you hear one, it's probably a lie anyway. But, but you just kind of wonder if those people just sort of got a conscience and said, you know what, I just don't like ripping people off. And
honestly, if you have a conscience, if you have empathy, you're not going to do well.
Right.
You can't. You cannot have empathy for other people and do well in a business like that where you are manipulating and exploiting people and you know it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think some of these people, even if they have a conscience, they suppress it because they get to such a high level. They're making so much money that they say, hey, I'm willing to, violate my own conscience because, I probably can't even get a job anymore because I've been doing this for so long. My resume is going to be, I was in Amway.
Yeah.
And they can't get hired. I mean, especially, maybe as a starting level, but, no one that gets older wants to start from scratch again. You can't afford it, for one thing.
Right.
Now, my upline diamond, Bruce and Wendy Anderson, also had a downline diamond. They weren't my upline. It was another leg of theirs. And I'm trying to remember Wade and April Cowart. Did you ever hear that name?
That sounds familiar.
Under the Andersons, they also quit. They just quit one day. No explanation. They were just gone. And maybe those people did have a conscience. I don't know. I don't know what caused it, especially at the diamond level,
Yeah.
At that point, you're really.
And they probably weren't making the money that they were trying to pretend like they made, like the Enses.
It could be. Now, how did you find out that the Enses weren't making money, or maybe their lifestyle was
well, like I said, there were red flags, but whoever my ex-husband talked to was the one who brought up then there was something going on. He had a construction company in Vegas, and there was something going on with it, and there was some sort of money issues, and I can't remember the details, but it was public information.
Oh, okay, and this is the Enses, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe he got into some financial difficulties.
He got into some.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I said, I don't know the details, but.
Yeah.
But there were red flags.
I know.
There was.
Yeah.
This is a woman thing. This is a woman thing.
Yep.
When we went to one of the functions, and I believe it was the Dream Weekend, the one in the summertime, and they have like the Dream Night, and all the diamond ladies come out on stage in their gowns, and they're all fancy. And Lisa Ince was up there, and she's wearing this bright red gown, long sleeve, floor length, split up the side dress, sequins, shiny, everything like that. It was very eye-catching, memorable dress. So a couple months later, we go to the function in Salt Lake, the big function, and they have their, the Diamond Lady Night. And they had come up with a color scheme for all of the ladies' gowns, and it was purple. And so every woman that was on stage was wearing some shade of purple. And then at the very end, they got them all lined up, and they've got all the dark purples on one end all the way down to the light purples. And right in the middle is Lisa Ince in that same bright red dress. And it clashed so bad, and it looked horrible. And I'm thinking, I felt horrible for her. I'm like, did she not get the memo that she was supposed to wear purple? And I'm thinking, why would anybody do that? It was so obviously out of place. And I'm like, the only reason why that would occur is if she couldn't afford to get a new dress.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why. As a woman, I'm telling you, there is no way she would have just done that on her own, because it had to have been humiliating.
Now, she wasn't the top dog there, right? She was just one of many diamonds.
She was just one of the many diamonds, yeah.
Yeah, so this would have been like a Wilson Haugen level
it was
function.
the big one. It was the big one under Jaeger.
Okay, even Jaeger, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. No,
yeah,
I hear you. That's definitely a big sign.
Yeah, that was
sure
the first thing I said when he found out that they were having money problems with his construction company. I was like, I knew it, because there's no way she would have worn the same dress to two functions, and it doesn't even match the color scheme.
Talk about flashing red lights. That's like a flashing sequin red dress.
Yes. This was you could not be unnoticed in this dress. It was bright red.
And I'm sure a lot of other women noticed that too, and maybe even guys.
I'm
I don't
sure
know.
they did. I mean, I felt bad for her. I'm sitting in the thing, and I was embarrassed for her. Oh my God, why? Why would she do that?
Right. Yeah, I think Wilson had these rules, and not being a woman, I don't remember. I might be getting this wrong, but I think if you were an emerald, you could wear sequins either the top half or bottom half of your outfit, but not both.
I think it was the top. They would wear sparkly tops and then plain skirts. Yeah,
and then if you were diamond, then you could do a full length, top to bottom sequins on your outfit, and that was kind of the code, if you will. And there was rules about how low the skirts had to go. I mean, there was all kinds of things to make sure it was, kept family friendly, so to speak. Very sort of conservative. Again, the conservative gave it an air of legitimacy and, just being, a legitimate business. And it was just one more of those many things, like you say, that, and when you look back on it, you go, how could I be that stupid? But when you think about it, there was a lot of people in the room with you. So, to me, it's not that I'm stupid or you're stupid or Pacee or Peter or anybody.
They're just very, very good at manipulating people.
Yeah, they're just really good liars, and they put up a really good front. I mean, they are really good at what they do. I have to hand it to them. It's an evil genius, but it's genius nonetheless. Elaine, was there anything else that you had on your mind? Or Peter, did you have any comments or questions? Or Pacee, if you're still there, if you wanted to chime in on any of this?
Pacee had dropped off, which we figured she might. But is there any dollar? But is there any dollar volume amount that you might say you made or lost in this endeavor? Is there a price tag you could put on it?
I really couldn't give you an actual price. I know it was in the thousands that we spent because we were going to all these functions. They were always out of state. We would have to fly or drive, be in hotels. And just all the regular stuff every weekend that we were having to do, and we were having to get babysitters, and we were having to put all this money into all this stuff. And I think the most money we ever made probably would have been our very first month when we bought our kit, and we got our money back from the kit.
So if you had your accounting sitting next to you and he says, do I pull out a piece of paper for a profit or a piece of paper for loss, would it be a pretty big piece of paper for loss as far as the accounting?
It was 100% loss. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then
our regular checks that we would get maybe like $20-$30.
Wow. And then when you were now that you were finally done, what was the feelings that now you were out of it? So what were your emotional feelings afterwards?
I'll tell you this: a couple of months after we were done, we were finished, we were done, we went on a vacation for the first time in 3 years that wasn't Amway related. Before we got into Amway, I have an older brother that lives on Lake Powell. Do you know where that is? It's down on the border of Utah, Arizona, and it's a big resort area. And we used to go. We went several times right at the end of the season, end of October. And we could rent the houseboats there for cheap, and we had like a big family gathering there and spend a week out on the lake in the houseboat. We never did that when we were in Amway. But that fall after we quit, that was the first time we actually went on an actual vacation that had nothing to do with Amway.
And that's interesting because I know Haugen, I think Wilson, but definitely Haugen and Anderson. They used to do that on an annual basis too. Go to Lake Powell, get a big, one of those big houseboats, and they'd have, the jet skis and the other boats, skiing and all of that on Lake Powell. And they would bring in the videos and show everybody their future. This is what you guys can have. Just keep doing it. It was one of those motivational things, to get you fired up. So it's interesting that you went there too, but as a what would you call it? A civilian?
Yeah. My brother and sister-in-law worked for the resort there, so we could, if we went on the off season, which was the best time to go anyway, because in the summer it's 120 degrees down there. So we would go in October when it was nice, and we could rent those houseboats for pretty cheap. During the summer it wouldn't be affordable for for regular people, but in the fall it was affordable for a family to get together on it.
And it is gorgeous down there. I mean, this is Peter. If you're not familiar with it, it's a lake that was. I think it's. I don't think it was the
it's the Colorado
Hoover
River
Dam.
And it's
not the
Glen Canyon.
Is it?
Glen Canyon Dam.
Yeah, but it's like the Grand Canyon, but not as wide and deep. And so when this water backs up because of the dam, it's so picturesque because you have all these canyon walls, very colorful. You know, the reds and the golds and the whites and the black. It's just gorgeous.
It's a very beautiful
gorgeous
place.
Scenery. Yeah. It's really quite amazing.
What state is this? What state is this?
It's right on the border of Arizona and Utah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Sounds
called
pretty.
Lake Powell, Powell. It's a really nice recreational area, like Elaine is saying. And I remember watching those videos from these guys, showing off all the free time they had and all that good stuff and all the money in the world, all the time in the world to just, live it up and relax. And, that was sort of the goal, if you will, that was promoted over and over again. And there was other things too, but that was one that I recall when you brought it up, Elaine. That's great.
There is one thing that I would like to talk about. I haven't heard this brought up, and I was remembering it when I was thinking about things to say. A couple of years after we got out of Amway, we got audited by the IRS. And it was for those 3 years that we were in Amway. And luckily, my ex-husband is one of those types that keeps every scrap of paper he ever gets. And because he was deducting all of the stuff that we were spending, like all of his mileage, gas, all the trips and everything, even things like our phone bill, because we had so many people that in our group that were out of town, we were making long distance phone calls all the time. And so he had deducted all of this, but he had kept all of his records. And so when he got audited, it was for those years. And he took all that stuff in with him. He had like boxes, those big cardboard file boxes full of all of that stuff, all of his receipts, all of his records, all of his bill statements, everything. And the lady that was doing it was pretty hostile, and she admittedly said that they looked for things like Amway and other like MLM type things. They're flagged with the IRS because people will deduct a lot of stuff. And so she told him that was the reason why he was getting audited, and she was going through everything, every line by line, trying to find something that he didn't have a receipt for. And luckily, he had all of his receipts. And there was kind of a funny moment because they were going over the phone bills, and he had every single phone bill, and all the calls were highlighted, and everything was written down. And she said, "Well, can you prove that all of these were business calls?" And he said, "Can you prove they weren't?" And that just kind of, she was just kind of defeated after that because she had every record. And she found like a couple of things that she said weren't legal for him to deduct, and he had to pay like $40 or $50, and that was it. But I would say if you are in Amway or any other MLM and you're making tax deductions, you better make sure that you keep your receipts, keep those records for whatever it is, 7 years, 10 years, that they can go back. Because
good point. Yeah,
because
good point.
They look for that. Those are red flags to the IRS.
Exactly, and it's good that you were only in 3 years because that's the time frame that after 3 years, if you're not making a profit, then the IRS considers your activity to be a hobby, not a business, and then your expenses are not deductible. Now, we were audited, I think it was within a year or two after we started, and it wasn't just me that was being audited, but it was also my sponsor and another person that he had sponsored, and we were all, we were all working at the same place at this nuclear power plant at the time, and we're pretty sure, we can't prove anything, but we're pretty sure that there were some people at the plant that knew that we were in and kind of turned us in, hey, go audit these guys, because that's the only way really it could have happened was if there was somebody giving the IRS our three names. Now, we came out okay because we were only in at that time for a year or two, and I wouldn't say I had perfect records, but I had enough to where, we came out okay. But, yeah, that's another one of those things, that IRS, and they know what they're doing. They know how to intimidate people. So it's good that your husband kept those records and stood up for himself, like you said. If they said, can you prove it? Well, how can you prove that this was not a business expense?
Yeah.
This is my record. I'm claiming it. Now you have to prove that it's not a business expense. So I'm glad you came out okay on that. But, yeah, that's another ugly part of the Amway and other MLM businesses is that potential of being audited. And it's interesting that the IRS person would say, yeah, we go after these kinds of businesses. It's a red flag for us. So
that's what he was told during the audit. We look for this and we go after this. We go after them.
Yeah, this is all
like you said, that was during that time when Amway was really huge. So it was probably a lot of that going on at that time.
Right. Yep. And there are people that cheat. So. It kind of makes sense that people need to be audited, and they can't audit everybody. It's only a very small fraction, right? I think it's less than 1% of people that are audited, but I think they do tend to focus on people that have, side businesses, MLMs, whatever.
Because if you don't understand how those things work, they're not taking taxes out of those. If you're actually making money, they're not taking taxes out. They're not taking any Social Security or anything like that out. You got to do that all on your own.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that or understand it.
Exactly. And you're not taught that by Amway or your upline. There was a time period. There was a time period, and I don't think it lasted very long, where they did have some guidance, but they've either taken that away or putting it behind the wall again. Where you can't see it unless you're an IBO and you're in there. But for years and years, there was really no guidance or advice either from Amway or the upline in that regard. And in fact, one of the big selling points was, hey, all these expenses are tax deductible. And some people think that that's, what they call there's another word for it. I'm trying to remember. Peter, you might know the right word here. It's not a deduction. It's it's a dollar for dollar. It's not a deduction, but it's something else. Elaine, maybe you can remember. I can't think of the word, but there's two different types of tax deductions. Either it's fully deductible, or if you have that expense, then you can deduct, the portion that's related to your tax rate. For example, let's say the 25% tax rate, then an expense, 25% of that would be deductible, but you're still paying for 75% of it, so it's not like it's free. Tax credit, that's what I was trying to think of. It just helped.
Yeah, it helped with the taxes. We would end up getting, a decent tax return every year because of all the deductions that he made.
Yeah, and my memory was it was like $5,000 or $6,000 of loss annually. And that was the deductible stuff. Like you said, the babysitters and other expenses are not deductible. So they were losses that we didn't get any credit for on our tax return. They were just pure expenses. So, yeah, there's now, were you in long enough? Do you remember the Pacee lawsuit? Maybe that started after you guys had gotten out.
Do
you remember hearing?
Need more.
Yeah, I think you guys were gone by then. There was a big
we were
lawsuit.
Pretty much done by 97, maybe around in there. So.
Yeah, I think that was before the years that the Pacee, that was a big class action lawsuit. And that was a big joke too. And Peter, I don't know if we have a hard stop here. I didn't
Nope, we're good to go. Nope, we're okay.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that Pacee lawsuit. That was around, I think it was around 2007, 8, 9, somewhere in there. And it took 3 or 4 years to resolve, but the end result was Amway offered up, let's see, I think it was around $100 per, IBO to pay them back for damages. They don't want to make it too high because that makes them look guilty. And they had almost no people taking them up on that. And so they actually doubled it. They said, okay, $200 just to get more people to step forward, make the claim. And by the way, they weren't giving out cash. They were giving out Amway products, and they were valuing them. They were valuing them not at manufacturing cost, which is probably maybe 20% of their retail cost. They were not valuing them at IBO cost. They were valuing them at full retail cost.
Yeah, that nobody ever paid or charged or anything.
Yeah, it was a total joke. In fact, I even wrote to the judge who was over the case. I said, this is ridiculous. I don't want Amway products. I'm disgusted by this company. Why would someone who used to be in Amway want Amway products in their house? It would just remind them of a, painful experience in their life. But they ended up doing that. And the lawyers that were suing them, it was a class action lawsuit. It was one of these that's a.
So were the lawyers paid in Amway products?
Yeah, right.
Or did they get cash?
The lawyers were paid cash by Amway, $25 million.
Oh, Jesus.
I am not kidding. Now, they earned it, and I'll put earned it in quotes because, they are lawyers, but they did put in a lot of hours. And this was a contingency case, right? So they were working for free, and if they had lost the case in court, then Amway would owe them nothing, and they would be out all those hours. They could have been doing billable work that they were just giving away. And so when you have these class action lawsuits, and it's not just Amway or MLM, it's any class action lawsuit, if the lawyers are working for contingency like that, and they normally are, and that's the nature of a class action lawsuit, is they have a big incentive to settle before it goes to court, because if they lose, even if they have a good case, you don't know what's going to happen in court. And if they lose, they lost.
Yeah,
but Amway paid $25 million just to make them go away. And I think they ended up paying the distributors, I don't know, something like I've heard anywhere between $40 to $50 million and $150 million. There's stories all over the place as far as the amount of money to make everything go away. They had a second pot of money for people that lost a lot of money. I think you had to lose at least $10,000. And then if you could produce your records, they would give you some money back. And so, we submitted our records for somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 over a dozen years. It may have been a little bit less than that because the years that we could apply for may have been a few less than the whole time. But anyway, we got about 5% of that. We got, like maybe $5,000 from Amway for, 100,000 plus of losses. So it was just a drop in the bucket, really.
Well, it's easy to rack up that kind of losses, the kind of money that you spend when you're in it.
Right. Yeah.
Because, like when we were in it, when we were full steam, we were going to Seminar and Rally every month. We were buying tickets for that. We were doing all these other meetings. I had bought I did the makeup shows. I bought all the makeup kit and all that stuff, and I would put on the beauty breaks for people to try the makeup. I was doing that all the time, constantly having to replenish my stuff that I used. The functions, obviously, that was a lot of money. The products, that's a lot of money. But mainly it was those stupid tapes, because we were getting those every week. And like I said, he was getting 5 to 6 a week, and they're $5 a pop.
Yeah, and like Peter mentioned at the beginning of this show, is you were encouraged to buy extra tools and extra starter kits, extra books, tapes, you name it, in case your business exploded.
They were told that everybody needed to have a kit in the trunk of their car,
right?
For when you were showing the plan, just because you wanted to sign people up, boom, right now, and you didn't want to have them wait for a few days to get a kit, because then they could have second thoughts or whatever.
Exactly.
But
in fact, our people were encouraged to buy several kits because you never knew when it was going to, quote unquote, explode. and you'd put a bunch of people in at once.
And the other thing that they would do with the
run out of kits, man.
Yeah.
Right.
If you were like a little bit below a level, like, all you need is, another 100 points and you'll be at whatever. And then they're like, well, just buy a kit.
Right. Yeah, because the sign-up paperwork is in the kit. So that's, an important thing to understand. You can't really sign somebody up without a kit, and that's the importance of having one on hand. If you wait for one to come in, they might lose interest. They might change their mind. So that was another major expense, a major overhead expense.
Plus $150.
And books. Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, Elaine, this has been terrific. I so appreciate you stepping forward and speaking up. I hope this causes more people to, and I know it's already kind of happening on, social media, which, we didn't have back then. There's a lot of people out there that are speaking up, and this is just one more outlet to show how bad it is. And it's not just the 90s, because we've had people on the show that just quit recently. Well, Pacee's one of them a couple of years ago. It's the same thing. I mean, little details change, but it's the same thing. When you look at it, really nothing has changed of consequence. It's all the same illegal pyramid, the same RICO fraud, tool scam.
And they're telling the same speeches. The other day I was on Sarah Girl's channel. You've spoken to her before, and she's playing the audios from the diamonds when they give their speeches, and she's playing this thing, and I'm like, I've heard this speech before. I heard it 25 years ago, almost word for word. And it's like, do they just give these guys a script?
Well, they don't need anything new, right? Because if it works, why change it? And number two, it's new people in front of you. They don't know that it's been going on for 25 years, and so, this is part of that exposing of them, that literally nothing has changed. To your point, even the stories are identical. So it is quite amazing. And I remember, you probably remember this too, getting coached. Now, when you show up to the seminar, if you show up to a board plan, make sure you're really enthusiastic and you cheer and clap and you get really excited, because it's for the new people to think that this thing is real. And so you're actually coached to do those things. To show them that it's an exciting
thing.
business.
We were so brainwashed in it. We were enthusiastic. We were excited. We were like, oh, look at the diamonds. Yeah. Yeah,
because there was enough to see with your own eyes that was believable. So it wasn't like it was, they weren't like giving you drugs. It was actually, you were watching it with your own eyes. You were watching people cross stage as new diamonds or emeralds or whatever. And so, it was very believable. People that call me stupid or retarded, it goes right over my head. I don't pay any attention to it, because I know how good of a job they did at fooling people. And I just, that's, water off a duck's back as far as, people insulting me over the years. I'm trying to help people that haven't been scammed yet. That's my goal.
Right.
And you've been a great contributor to this, by the way. This has been just terrific. If there's anyone I don't know if your parents are around or any of your other family that was in it that has their own spin on things. Maybe you guys were the most active and they don't have a whole lot to say, but if they want to, they're welcome to come on the show and, give their perspective and their experiences. To me, the more the merrier, as far as people telling their story, because this is the real stuff. This is not the theory. This is the rubber meets the road. So, anything more you wanted to say, or Peter, any comments that you had? I'll let you guys say anything else you want to say, and we can wrap it up for this week.
I think I'm good.
Yep, no more comments from me, but you'll be able to hear this. For those people that want to listen to this again, we're going to give Elaine her own guest spot. So if you go to buildingfortunesradio.com/Scott Johnson, you'll be able to hear this radio show again. Her name is in the title of this radio show. It's Elaine Hill. And then she'll also have a guest spot. It'll be generated for her the next couple of days. So if you're listening in live and you go look for it, you won't find it. Wait a day or so. And that's where she'll be able to put any contact information she wants to put, or a little bit more about her story. And if she wants to come back, sometimes what's going to happen, Elaine, is you might think of something, oh, shoot, I probably should have mentioned this. This might have really helped we'll certainly have you come back.
Okay.
So, Scott, I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank Elaine again. This has been almost a flashback, because even though the groups are really similar, whether it's, Worldwide or Brit Worldwide or Worldwide Dream Builders or LTD, I mean, there's a number of these organizations out there, and they're all very similar. But to be able to talk to someone that was, this close in the organization, and just to talk about all of the things that we, witnessed in the same time frame and the same upline, if you will, has really been interesting and informative to me to see not only the similarities, which are vast, but also some of the differences. Some of the differences are really interesting. How Ensis said, "Don't sell." That's pretty extreme. That's pretty extreme. Now, I think I may have asked you this before. Were you ever taught how to fake out the computer to make a personal purchase look like a retail sale?
No.
Okay.
We didn't do we didn't do anything like that. It wasn't on the computer when I was in. It was when we were still making phone calls upline, and then the direct would order the stuff, and then it would get passed down line.
Yeah, and that's how we got started too. And you're right, that was probably a little bit later, when either just right when Quickstar came along in 1999, or maybe a little bit before. We may have started doing a little bit of stuff on the computer before that. It was probably after.
Yeah, I remember about a year after we got out, that's when they started switching over to that. And the people that were upline from us were still involved, and they were saying, "Oh, you should get back involved again because it's all new now." And we were like, "No."
Yeah, we were taught to go contact all the people that used to be in Amway, because this is the new, improved, and different, and just high tech and all this stuff, high tech and high touch, and But that's how you grew your names list again, was you contacted the people that used to be in, and give them a new spin on things. So, Elaine, I'll let you make any concluding remarks, and like Peter said, if you think of other stuff you'd like to say on a future show, just get in touch with me. We'd be real happy to have you on again.
No, I really can't think of anything, but I think that's it for me.
Thanks for being here. So we're going to catch everybody next week. It's going to be, Scott, is it 4th of July next week? Holy cow. So
it is.
Going to be 4th of July. You want to prep up the next radio show?
I will, mainly because it's a different time. And we've done this a couple times in the past, Peter, where we've had people overseas. And this guy is going to be calling in from the Czech Republic, of all places, Prague, which interestingly was a place that I was invited and went to in 2008. Amway invited me and the 4 or 5 other IBOs to come to their public relations. They had every other year they have a public relations meeting, over a 2 or 3 day period. It's a corporate thing. And we were called in to make some comments on, what we thought the impact of social media was on Amway. And, of course, social media was a baby back then. But we were on blogs and websites and that sort of thing. Not much, Twittering or YouTubing or Facebooking back then. So it was pretty rudimentary. Our guest is going to be calling in. He's been active, in the anti-MLM scam, particularly Amway, I think, arena. And so he's going to bring us that European understanding to this radio show. So I'm really looking forward. And it's going to be at 4 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it'll be a different time of day. And he'll be calling in, and I'm sure we'll have another good time like we have with our other. I think we've had 2 other people from Europe call in, a couple of the attorneys, and then also our friend David calling in from Iraq, where he was teaching English. He's a Canadian teaching English in Iraq, and he came on the show. So we have gone international before, so we're looking forward to doing it again. And so certainly, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there won't be any fireworks going on. And with the coronavirus, I think everything's going to be either shut down or I know that locally here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, what they're doing is they're telling people we're going to go to some remote place and we're going to shoot them up in the sky higher, so you don't have to come in and get crowded together. Just stay at your house and look up into the sky. So that's the nature of the 4th of July fireworks, at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, this coming Saturday. Go right ahead.
Well, we're going to be here as well, so 4 p.m. Eastern, and if we get a chance, what we'll do for those people that have a habit of being here at 8:30, we'll probably get a chance to get it, record it, pop it back up, and be able to replay it at 8:30 as well. Otherwise, Scott, I don't know what you're doing. Maybe we do one of our update calls, depending on whatever's going on. We'll talk about that as well. So, having said all of that, everybody have a great weekend. Elaine, thanks for being here, and then I know Pacee's not here, but if she's listening in, thanks for being here. We'll catch you guys later. Thanks.
You've been listening to Building Fortunes Radio on buildingfortunesradio.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check us out every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for the designated Building Fortunes Radio segment with Peter Mingles. Be sure to check out the buildingfortunesradio.com website for our featured segments. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world.